But if the Reagan Library is anything like its counterparts, most of those who enter these doors will not be academics. No, they will be ordinary people of all ages, backgrounds, and political persuasions, eager to examine their past and explore a history not always learned in school. For them, this institution will be a time capsule of American growth and greatness, covering more than a single presidency, honoring more than a single president. Here, visitors will have a chance to tour and study at their leisure the accelerating changes in a fast-forward world. They will be able to trace the historic process by which mankind has stepped back from the narrow window ledge of mutually assured destruction.
Hi, I'm Melissa, and welcome to this month's Live From at the Reagan Library. Remember, we do these on the first Wednesday of every month. I'm going to start by first apologizing that we're running a little bit late. We were having a bunch of technical difficulties with the microphones. So I may sound a little weird on this episode. I usually wear a lavalier microphone. We couldn't get it to work, so we're using the camera microphone, so I'm going to try and project a little bit louder. I hope you can hear me. But back to our live cast. So unfortunately and very sadly, the Reagan Library has now been closed for 6 months due to the coronavirus pandemic. However, California has come out just a couple of days ago with new measures and categories of when businesses can reopen. So we're going to be watching those numbers really carefully, hoping and praying that we can open up to the public soon and welcome you all back. But until then, for this Live From, we are inside of our Air Force One Pavilion. We thought it would be a lot of fun to maybe answer some of the questions we get asked time and time again as guests tour through this pavilion. But we wanted to make this live cast a little bit different. We wanted to make this one an actual open forum. So I'm encouraging you to use the comment section below in your Facebook page to ask us questions, whether it's about the pavilion, the plane, even the Reagan Library. And toward the end of this podcast, we are going to try and answer some of your questions. So please ask away. We look forward to engaging with you. I'm also really excited because this is the first Live From where we have a guest. So we are going to welcome John. He is the facilities manager for the Air Force One Pavilion. He's been with the building since the construction. I want to make it very clear we are standing 7 feet apart, which is why we're not wearing masks. With the microphone issue, we were really worried you wouldn't be able to hear us. So we're going to keep our distance. But welcome, John. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So the building's been open since October of 2005, and since that time, over 5 million people have come through this building, and they ask the same questions over and over and over again, and we thought it would be fun to have you answer some of them.
Sure, give it a shot.
Okay, so by far, the most asked question is, how the heck did you get this plane inside this building? They ask us how we got the plane in the building, how we put it back together, and how we got it raised up on these pillars. So if you wouldn't mind taking a minute or two and trying to talk our audience through that, that would be great.
Not at all. That is our number one question, and the plane actually flew into San Bernardino Airport from Washington, and they took the plane apart inside a hangar. Boeing came out and disassembled it. They took the wings, the tail, the stabilizers, the engines, and the landing gear off, which left just the regular cylindrical fuselage. They put that on a special trailer, brought that up to the library prior to construction of the building, set all the pieces out on the dirt lot, which is now our parking lot, and then they slowly brought pieces inside the building as the superstructure of the building was put together. They brought cranes and heavy equipment in, they put the plane back together, and then set the plane up on 3 huge hydraulic jacks. Those jacks then lifted the plane very gently and moved it forward and set it down on the 3 pillars that you see it on today. The process took quite a while to do, and it was a huge engineering feat just on its own. They then stripped the plane, repainted it, and then shrink wrapped the plane and finished the entire inside of the building and got it ready for display. Pretty much that was it. It took a lot of effort to get those in here.
And the pillars? Is that all the hydraulics?
Yes, the 3 hydraulic jacks lifted the plane out, and then these are the pillars that actually set down on the landing gear to support the plane. The plane is then bolted to those pillars, and then that keeps it obviously stable for
all the guests to walk through.
everybody to go through. Yes.
Fantastic. Now, when you're standing here, you can't help but look out these magnificent glass windows that we have. And when you do, you see the California mountain hillside covered in wonderful dry brush. Can you talk our guests through what we do to protect this building and all of our buildings from California wildfires?
Sure. The building itself is actually a Type 3 rated fire rated building. So that basically means there's no wood used in the construction. Most of the materials that are in here are either fire resistant or fireproof. But then we also work with Ventura County Fire Department and bring in a herd of goats once a year. And the public and our guests love seeing the goats, and they actually roam in a specified area about 200 feet from our property line, which allows us to a barrier, basically, of any wildfire brush or anything that might be consumables during a wildfire, and that really helps.
Yeah, and I can even say when we had our horrible wildfires back in October and our building was really in jeopardy, a lot of the firefighters told us that it was the goats that helped them protect us because it created that sort of fire line.
It gave them a barrier to work with and to fight the fires as it was coming up the hill.
And we love having them here too.
We love having the goats here. Everybody loves
Right,
them.
exactly. So speaking of this great glass wall, another question we get all the time is how big is it? How much glass is it? And if you're familiar with our area in Simi Valley, you know how much wind we get. Very, very strong gusts of wind. And how does this window sustain that heavy wind?
It is a huge window. It's about 180 feet wide by 60 feet high. It has a little over 184 pieces of individual glass that are independently suspended on the structure. It does move a little bit when the heavy winds hit it. It does flex slightly, but it is amazingly rigid for each one of those panes being individually supported. The architectural design for the building was that the plane is on a slightly nose-up attitude, which gives it the impression that it's just taking off from the runway and heading out through the glass over the hills.
Yeah, and just kind of going back to the plane for a second, we mentioned it before, but because we use the actual air conditioning unit from the plane, it kind of gives it that hum as well. So you really do feel like you're in
As
flight.
guests walk through the plane, we bolted the air conditioning unit to the frame of the plane, so it actually, we utilize the air conditioning ducting, so you get that feel that you're actually in the plane.
So now we're standing in front of Marine One, which is another one of the questions we get all the time was, how did you get Marine One in the building?
Marine One actually flew up here and landed on the back lawn of the museum. And when it was, again, when Air Force One arrived, Marine One was brought down next to it. And when the building with structure was completed, they brought Marine One in on a crane, set it into place, and then again stripped it, repainted it, and got it prepped for public display. So that was quite, again, an engineering feat and a flight actually that landed here on the library.
And I know we hadn't really rehearsed this question, but the CDs helped us a lot, right?
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
They did.
So thank you for your support on that. Now, some people will remember, another question we get a lot, that when you're in this Air Force One Pavilion, you remember we have elections coming up. We've held many presidential debates in this building, and the question we get is if you can remember that picture in your mind. The candidates are sitting with their backs right up against the back of the plane, or the front of the plane. In fact, they could literally just turn over their shoulder and with their finger touch the fuselage. But if you look up, it is an open expanse. There is no floor there. Can you talk about how the debate happened in that way?
It was magic.
Fantastic.
No, CNN, which was the primary broadcaster and producer of the event, they actually built a platform from the upper balcony straight out on scaffolding to the plane. That scaffolding would completely encompass the Marine One helicopter. In fact, we had to remove a couple of the rotors off of the helicopter in order to accommodate their scaffolding setup. So it too was an engineering feat just to build that stage and that platform that came right up to the entrance or the nose of the plane.
Now, you don't have to be as elaborate as a debate to hold an event in this building. So can you talk about, the type of people or type of companies that hold events in here and how you might be able to hold an event yourself?
We have had all sorts of events in here. Since 2011, we had the Centennial for President Reagan. We had the Beach Boys concert in here. We've had other events for former presidents, heads of state, and we've also worked with everything from private events in here to corporate parties. We even had one event in here that they had Cirque du Soleil acrobats performing. So we have a series of events in here constantly, except during COVID operations. Unfortunately, we're not doing anything right now.
So again, we're going to now thank you, John. That was fantastic.
You're welcome.
So much easier than me having to memorize all that, so I appreciate it. As we promised in the beginning, we're going to take some of your questions. So if you have any questions maybe about what John said or something we haven't mentioned yet, please go to the comment section. We're going to try and take some of these now. I'm looking at these for the first time. This is a great question that I'm hoping you can answer without any pre-studying. How often, and how long does it take to wax and clean Air Force One?
We actually have our own in-house maintenance crew that does all the waxing of the floors. There's almost 80,000 square feet of concrete floors that have to be waxed and cleaned, and we do that about twice a year.
So that's the only question. Come on, everyone. You have to have more questions. We want to thank Daryl Bowen for asking that one. That was fantastic. If anyone else has any other questions, well, we might be waiting for a second or two. I do want to mention that if you're interested in renting the facility, you simply go to our website, which is reaganfoundation.org. There's a button, I think it says Plan an Event, and you can learn all about that. Can you talk about, I'm sure the answer is no, but any other plans of expansion or anything else, any new changes in this building?
No, since the building was open, the only big change was the Discovery Center, which is open to school groups. That is a separate function. It's not open to the public. You have to sign up through the Discovery Center to have a field trip here, which is an amazing part of our education department. Other than that, the building is pretty much the way it was when it was first built. We do some different exhibits in here. During Christmas, we have the Christmas tree exhibits in the hall, in some of the rooms upstairs. And as I said, we do rent out some of the smaller rooms. We have a couple of meeting rooms that we do on a regular basis as well.
I do want to apologize. I'm seeing the comment over and over about how bad the audio is. We are so sorry. The microphone just completely died right before we went live. I do have a couple more questions that have come in. When was the last time the plane was flown, this specific plane? Do you remember?
Yes, the last time it was flown is when it flew into San Bernardino Airport when it was disassembled, and that was in 2000.
I believe it was September 8th of 2001.
Yeah, I was going to say 2001, but I didn't know the exact date.
Yeah, in fact, that's another really interesting story. We were supposed to get the plane in August of 2001, and at the last minute, the plans were changed. We ended up getting the plane on September 8th. And if you think about what I just said, September 8th of 2001, which is 3 days before 9/11. And we talk often here, what would have happened had we not gotten the plane or scheduled to get the plane until maybe September 15th? Had 9/11 hit, would we ever have gotten this plane? It took a lot of resources from the Air Force to get here. So we're so grateful that we have it here. A couple other questions. Have you considered doing virtual tours for students? I'm actually going to answer that one. Our education team is very hard at work to be able to do just that for the school year. They've been reaching out to the teachers. Our Discovery Center program, which was actually last month's live from, so you can find it on our YouTube channel if you want to go check that out, is almost ready to be done virtually. And they're also working on how they can do virtual tours with students and adults during the closure. We're being asked how soon until we reopen? Your guess is as good as ours. I don't know where that question came from and what state. If you are in California, you'll know that just this past weekend, Governor Newsom and the government in California came forward with new standards for how California works. We're in 4 tiers. Purple is the worst. Los Angeles and Ventura County are purple. We cannot reopen until we've been in the red for 3 weeks. We're not sure when we're going to move from purple to red. We currently have 12 new cases a day per 100,000 people, and we have to get down to 8 cases per day per 100,000 people to move from purple to red. So fingers are crossed. If you live in California, if you're in LA or Ventura, stay home for Labor Day. Don't go out. Don't spread this disease. Help us get open. We really want to be able to reopen. Is there a virtual tour of the library available? Not yet. Again, this is our 5th virtual live from. The first 3 we did in April, May, and June were all virtual tours of the campus. Inside galleries, outdoor campus. So just go to our YouTube channel, search for our live from videos, and you can watch those. We are trying to discuss how we might be able to make a whole virtual tour of the galleries if we can't reopen soon, which we're really hoping. John, you might be able to answer this one.
Okay.
Are we the only presidential library that contains a president's airplane? And are the rest of the planes in Dayton, Ohio, or the Air Force Museum?
Dayton, Ohio does have quite a few presidential aircraft at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which is the Air Force Museum. And if you've never been there, I highly suggest a trip there when it's available. Fantastic museum. We are the only presidential library that has an Air Force One jet or aircraft on display. There may be some others in the future, but right now we are the only one.
So I'm going through the questions. I see one that says one of the coolest places to visit in Southern California, and I'm going to call him out. He's an employee. Thank you, Romeo. We appreciate that. I see from David Trevino, when was the last time a president flew on the plane? I don't know the date, but it would have been President Clinton.
No,
Bush,
actually,
President Bush.
President George W. Bush flew on it once, and I don't know the exact date, but it was just before it was retired, which was 2001. So I'm going to guess it was sometime early in 2001.
We're just going to take a couple more. I'm going to actually ask a question back to this camera. There's a person here, Peter Alice Acosta Burgess Willis, and I don't actually understand your question. So if you want to ask it again, we'll actually, after this podcast is over, we can answer you in the comment section. It's something about a guest in the library. I'm not quite sure what you're asking, but we would be happy to answer that for you if you re-ask it. We don't currently have any virtual special exhibitions, which was someone's question. Sean Hamill is asking when the last time the helicopter was flown, which John answered. It was when the helicopter actually came here.
Yes.
It was March of 2003, I think.
I believe it was 2003, and yes, it flew out from the East Coast. It made its way over here and landed on our, as I said, on the back lawn here. And interestingly, on record, the last pilot of that aircraft was a young lady that flew it from the lawn after the ceremony over to the parking lot where it sat.
The last two questions, how many countries did Air Force One visit?
Lots.
I can tell you that President Reagan flew on it to 26 countries. I don't know how many flew with the other presidents. Not sure if John knows.
President Nixon was the first president to use the plane in 1972, and it flew, as I said, through George W. Bush in 2001.
Jordy from Spain, thank you so much for watching. That's awesome. And then the last question, which I just love, Brent Hemingway, I believe it is asking, do we serve Irish beer in our pub? Do you want to talk about the pub really quick?
Yes, the pub was actually an actual pub in Ballyporeen, Ireland, and when they were taking the building apart, they saved the pub and brought it here. We reconstructed parts of it so that people could see where President Reagan had visited on June 3rd of 1984. And there's a little display right here of the glasses and the stool that he used when he was visiting. And yes, we do use it for special events. We also use it as kind of a snack stand for our guests. And yes, you can purchase alcoholic beverages.
Yes, you can. In fact, the caterer that works for us got their liquor license specifically once we got the pub, because how can you have a pub and not sell alcohol?
Right.
So I want to let you know, first of all, thank you so much for engaging with us in the comment section. If we did not answer your question, when this is over, we're going to go back into the comment section and answer them there. Really want to apologize for the audio issues. We know it's not great. We saw a lot of your comments. We will do everything we can for our next one next month to have all the issues fixed so that you can hear us better. I want to thank John again for joining me. It was really fun to have you back on.
Okay.
And we'll end the way we end all of these podcasts. Doesn't even matter if you can't hear me. You know what I'm going to say. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our 2 audio podcasts, It's Words to Live By in a Reagan Form, which can be found on Stitcher, SoundCloud, iTunes, and of course our website, ReaganFoundation.org, as well as Ricochet.com. And what I've been saying the past 1 to 2 months, if you don't already subscribe to our YouTube channel, please do. It's really simple, youtube.com/Reagan Foundation. Every week we post 2 video podcasts. They're only a minute long. Monday Minute in the Archives on Monday, Thursday Throwback with the President on Thursdays. such an easy, fast, fun way to stay connected to Ronald Reagan's legacy and what we're doing here at the Reagan Library and Reagan Foundation. So please subscribe to all those different things. Stay involved. We really appreciate it. And until next month when our audio is better, we will see you then. Again, stay safe, stay healthy, stay COVID-free. We'll see you next month.
The doors of this library are open now, and all are welcome. The judgment of history is left to you, the people. I have no fears of that, for we have done our best. And so I say, come and learn from it. My fondest hope is that Americans will travel the road extending forward from the arch of experience, never forgetting our heroic origins, never failing to seek divine guidance as we march boldly, bravely into a future limited only by our capacity to dream. May every day be a new beginning, and every dawn bring us closer to that shining city upon a hill. Thank you. God bless you all, and God bless America.